Robert Chun stood in his penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker to life below. At 58, he had everything money could buy, yet his spacious home felt emptier with each passing year. His late wife Margaret had been gone for 3 years now, and the silence had become his constant companion. His assistant, Emma Sullivan, knocked softly before entering with his evening coffee. She was 32, with kind eyes and a gentle manner that reminded Robert of simpler times. Emma had worked for him for 5 years, always reliable, always thoughtful. She knew when he needed his coffee, a little stronger, when to reschedule meetings if he seemed tired, and she never forgot the anniversary of Margaret's passing. "Mr. Chun, don't forget the Founders' Ball is next Saturday," Emma reminded him gently, placing the cup on his desk. Robert sighed. The annual charity ball was something Margaret had loved. Now it felt like a chore, surrounded by old friends who had all moved on with their lives while his remained frozen. "I'm not sure I'll attend this year, Emma," he said quietly. Emma paused. "At the door? Mrs. Chun would have wanted you to go. She loved that evening. She used to tell me how magical it made her feel." Robert looked up, surprised Emma remembered those conversations with Margaret. A thought occurred to him, sudden and unexpected. "Emma, would you consider accompanying me? As my guest, not as my assistant? I find these events difficult to face alone." Emma's cheeks colored slightly. "Mr. Chun, I don't think that's appropriate. People might what? Judge me for bringing a kind person who is a friend to my wife." Robert's voice was firm but gentle. "Emma, I'm asking you as a friend. Nothing more. I simply don't want to walk into that ballroom alone again." After a long moment, Emma nodded. "All right, Mr. Chun, I'd be honored." The week passed quickly. Robert found himself feeling something he hadn't felt in years. A flicker of anticipation. Not romance, but simply the comfort of knowing he wouldn't be alone. Saturday evening arrived. Robert adjusted his bow tie in the mirror, the man with dark swept-back hair and warm brown eyes looking back at him. He wore a classic black tuxedo with a crisp white shirt, the picture of understated elegance. At his age, he had learned that true style came from simplicity and confidence. When his car pulled up to Emma's modest apartment, he stepped out to meet her at the door. Old-fashioned courtesy Margaret had always appreciated. Emma opened the door, and for a moment, Robert simply stood there. She wore a stunning jeweled gown that caught the light with every breath. The intricate beadwork sparkled across the bodice, and her chestnut hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. A delicate diamond necklace graced her neck, and her earrings caught the evening light. But it was her nervous smile that struck him most. The vulnerability of someone stepping outside their comfort zone. "You look absolutely beautiful, Emma," Robert said sincerely. "Shall we?" At the ball, Robert's so-called friends wasted no time with their comments. He could hear the whispers as they entered the grand ballroom together. "Good heavens, is that his assistant?" Martha Winters muttered. Not quite softly enough. How inappropriate. Charles Davenport, his old business rival, smirked openly. "Robbing the cradle, aren't we, Chun? What would Margaret think?" The words stung, but Robert kept his composure. Emma's hand tightened slightly on his arm, and he patted it reassuringly. "Pay them no mind," he whispered. Jealousy often masquerades as judgment, but as they moved through the ballroom, something unexpected happened. Emma didn't shrink from the stares. Instead, she held her head high with natural grace. When Robert's elderly friend Henry approached, wheelchair-bound from a recent stroke, Emma immediately knelt beside him, speaking with him about his late wife, whom she'd met years ago at a company event. Her genuine warmth brought tears to Henry's eyes. "He chose well tonight, Robert," Henry said, grasping his hand. "Real kindness is rarer than all the wealth in this room." As the evening progressed, more people began to see what Robert had known all along. Emma remembered the caterer's daughter had been ill and stopped to ask after her. She complimented the decorating committee with specific, thoughtful observations. When the music began, she insisted on dancing with Arthur, a widower who always stood alone at these events. Robert watched her move across the floor, and something in his heart shifted, not into romance, but into deep gratitude. Here was someone who understood what Margaret had known, that being wealthy meant little if you weren't also kind. During dinner, Martha Winters approached their table. Her expression softened. "Robert, I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I made assumptions. Your MR reminds me of why we started this charity in the first place. She's been speaking with the foundation director about volunteer programs. She has wonderful ideas." Robert smiled. "She has a good heart, Martha. As all I ever look for in companions." As the evening drew to a close, Robert and Emma stood on the ballroom balcony, looking out over the city. The same city lights he watched every evening, but somehow they seemed warmer tonight. "Thank you for inviting me," Emma said softly. "And for defending me, even when I couldn't hear it." "Thank you for reminding me that kindness never goes out of style," Robert replied. "Margaret would have been proud of how you carried yourself tonight." You honored her memory by simply being yourself. Emma's eyes glistened. I miss her too. You know, she taught me that work isn't just about tasks and schedules. It's about caring for people. Robert realized then that his loneliness had been he'd been so focused on what he'd lost that he'd forgotten what remained. Good people, genuine connections, and the simple grace of human kindness. Emma, I hope you'll continue joining me at these events. Not as an obligation, but as a friend. I think we both could use more evenings like this. I'd like that very much, Mr. Chun. Please, call me Robert. As they drove home through the quiet streets, Robert felt something he hadn't felt in 3 long years. Peace. Not the absence of grief, but the acceptance of it, alongside gratitude. For the present moment. Sometimes the greatest wealth isn't found in bank accounts or penthouse offices. It's found in the simple dignity of treating others with respect, in recognizing kindness when it appears, and in having the courage to walk into a room with someone genuine by your side. Regardless of what others might think, Robert had learned that lesson long ago, from Margaret. Tonight, Emma had reminded him of it, and in that reminder, he'd found something precious. A reason to keep living fully, to keep connecting, to keep caring. The city lights continued to glow, but now they seemed less like distant stars, and more like welcoming beacons, guiding him toward a future where loneliness didn't have to be the price of loss, and where friendship could bloom in the most unexpected places.